It's 6 p.m. here in Cairo, and it's time for the news bulletin in English. Coming up will be the headlines in a moment, so stay with us. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directs to preserve and protect the heritage of the Egyptian radio and television. Egypt strongly condemns the Israeli decision to build 3,400 settlements around Jerusalem. In Sudan, Doctors Without Borders say at least 40 people have died in Darfur region of cholera. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directed today to preserve and protect the heritage of the Egyptian radio and television, converting all radio and television tapes owned by the National Media Authority to digital media and investing this content within the digital platform established by the authority. The present directives came upon meeting Minister of Communication and Information Technology, Dr. Amr Talat, and Head of the National Media Authority, Mr. Ahmed Al-Muslimani. The presidential spokesperson, Ambassador Mohammed Shenawi, said the president also directed the development of the global website for the Holy Quran radio channel to preserve the heritage of reciters and protect the numerous programs broadcast by the Holy Quran radio channel since its establishment in 1964. Egypt strongly expressed condemnation on the announcement of the Israeli Minister of Finance to build 3,400 settlements around occupied Jerusalem. In a settlement, Egypt affirmed that the move reflects Israel's insistence on expanding its seizure of Palestinian lands and changing demographic status of occupied territories. Egypt further denounced the extremist statements of Israel on the imposition of Israeli sovereignty and settlement expansion in the West Bank and warned of Israel's intention to liquidate the Palestinian cause. The statement also asserted Egypt's calls for intensifying peace efforts and establishing an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, according to the international laws and UN resolutions. Israeli far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich approved plans for a settlement that would split East Jerusalem from the occupied West Bank, a move, his office said, would bury the idea of Palestinian state. In a statement, Smotrich's spokesperson announced the decision and said the development would build 3,401 houses for Israeli settlers between an existing settlement in the West Bank and Jerusalem. It was not immediately clear if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu backed the plan to revive the long-frozen E1 scheme, which Palestinians and world powers have said would effectively top the West Bank in two, dissect the West Bank in two, and will likely draw international fire. Palestinians fear the settlement building in the West Bank will rob them of any chance to build a state of their own in the area. The 15th humanitarian aid convoys will start entering for Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip through Rafah border crossing to reach north of the Strip today. Officials said 15 convoy trucks loaded with food, humanitarian and medical aid necessarily needed are aligned waiting to head for the Gaza Strip. Earlier, for the 14th consecutive day, Egyptian humanitarian aid convoy Zad al-Izza to Gaza, it entered from Egypt through the Rafah border crossing. The convoy, which entered through Karm Abu Salim crossing, carried thousands of tons of food, relief, and aid and medical supplies. The Israeli military said today it intercepted a missile fired from Yemen, where Houthi rebels have regularly launched attacks in response to Israel's offensive in Gaza. The Houthi rebels have repeatedly launched missiles and drones at Israel since Israel launched Gaza war in October 2023. The Houthis paused their attacks during a 2-month ceasefire in Gaza, but renewed them after Israel resumed major operations. Israel has carried out several retaliatory strikes in Yemen, targeting Houthi-held ports and airports in Sana'a. A UN commission investigating sectarian bloodshed in Syria's Alawite heartland documented systematic violence, warning some of the acts could constitute war crimes. A report by the Commission said it documented cases of violent acts, widespread looting and burning of homes, leading to the mass displacement of civilians. Some 1,400 people were reported killed during the violence that primarily targeted Alawite communities. And the White House spokeswoman said today that U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, they will meet one-to-one tomorrow in Alaska before holding a joint press conference on the outcome of their talks. In a media interview, the spokeswoman pointed out that her country has plenty of tools to help bring an end to the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. And with just one day to go until the U.S.-Russian summit on ending the war in Ukraine, it's President Vladimir Zelensky visiting London today to shore up European support for efforts to prevent any agreement that would carve up Ukrainian land. The details.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky met Thursday in London with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in a strong show of support on the eve of a key US-Russia summit from which Kiev and its European allies have been excluded. Zelensky met British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to build on momentum from virtual talks on Wednesday with European leaders and Trump to try to set red lines for the talks between Trump and Putin in Anchorage, Alaska. Trump and Vladimir Putin will meet Friday at an air base in Alaska, the first time the Russian leader has been permitted on Western soil since his February 2022 invasion of Ukraine, which has killed tens of thousands of people. A step-up Russian offensive and the fact Zelensky has not been invited to the Anchorage meeting Friday have heightened fears that Trump and Putin could strike a deal that forces painful concessions on Ukraine.
Back home, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli mourned the great writer Sunallah Ibrahim, who passed away on Thursday. Madbouli expressed his appreciation for the precious literary heritage of the great author and for his unique experience, which continued for decades. Madbouli also reiterated the late author was considered an icon for the path of Arab writers. He was one of the unique pioneers of contemporary Egyptian literature. The Prime Minister paid his sincere condolences for his family and lovers. In the same context, the National Media Authority, headed by Mr. Ahmed al-Muslimani, mourned the passing away of the late author. Muslimani said the great author was one of the soft power symbols that always achieved respect and from both leaders and critics, and deserved nomination for Nobel Prize for Literature. Egypt's stock market indices declined today, being affected by selling operations by Arab and foreign investors. The main EGX 30 index lost 0.78%. The small and medium EGX 70 lost 0.12%. The more expanded EGX 100 index lost 0.17%. The overall transactions and dealings within the session reached £49.7 billion. And oil prices edged higher today on the eve of landmark talks between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on potentially ending Ukraine conflict. London's Brent North Sea crude rose 0.1% at $65.72 a barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude surged the same percent at $62.72 per barrel. Gold prices soared for the third consecutive day, boosted by expectations of decreasing interest rates of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank next September. Spot gold prices, which tend to rise when investors focus on geopolitical risks, fell about 0.5% to $3,395 per troy ounce. Goldman Sachs analysts in a note to clients that lack of progress towards a Ukraine ceasefire could lead to renewed White House sanctions on Russia oil, but this would only cause a limited risk of supply disruptions.